All right, we got Toxic Fandom, Why It's Worse Than Ever from Snarky J. Okay, what's happening?
It's easy to take somebody's opinion about a random movie overwhelmingly personally when you've made that movie your entire personality.
What?
Hey y'all, Snarky J Cosplay here. I've made a couple of videos in the past talking about toxic fandom, my experiences with toxic fandom. I've read fun, mean comments on this channel to the detriment of my mental health and well-being, but I've been thinking, which is dangerous, it's always dangerous when I think, but I've been thinking lately about what it is that makes fandom so incredibly toxic. And this is not to call out Star Wars fans.
Well, I guess I paused it at the right time. Uh, why are fans toxic for their specific social or for their specific media? Well, the, the people that you're hearing are probably a minority of the entire fan base. Number one, you're hearing the probably the vocal minority, but as far as why, because they're just socially retarded and they don't really know how to speak to people in real life. They can only type something up or I don't know, make a video and they just start yelling because I don't know, whenever I make a video, I try to say it or just act as if the person's just like right there in front of me. Like I'm probably not gonna say some outlandish, dumb, crazy ass shit just because there's no one around me. I mean, I don't know. That's just how I've been operating. But I mean, to whatever success, I mean, or lack thereof, is probably a whole nother thing. Uh, I don't know. The whole toxic fandom thing. I just chalk it up as people are just socially retarded.
Or Marvel fanboys, or even the Dune devotees who hate.
Okay, so Star Wars, Marvel, and Dune Bros. Oh my god, are these fan bases, or at least the vocal minority? These are the ones that are like starting to yap up about some dumb shit.
Hate me with all the passion of 1,000 suns. This is genuinely not a targeted attack or statement on any fandom, but what it is an exploration in toxic fandom and dealing with assholes, so to speak, on the internet, and what makes people react the way that they do when it comes to these fandom spaces. So in my thinking, I've come up with a number of different reasons why people behave the way they do when it comes to these interactions on the basis of fandom on the internet, and I hope that you'll join me in the next few minutes of this video and come on this journey so that we can really.
How much are you gonna? Would you bet if any of the mean comments or videos or anything like that are coming from kids that are like I don't know under 18 at least, lending more so to the credence that kids should not be on the internet?
Really explore why fandoms are as toxic as they are. So to kick things off, I think people get very attached and devoted to certain aspects of
Hmm.
fandom. I think it's a really human need to find something to believe in, and for
I want to be part of a group. I need to be a part of a group. I'm not part of a group. Oh, I like that group. Let me be a part of that group. Now that I'm a part of this group, now I can take on all the morals and values and ethics of that group. And anybody that attacks my group, I can defend my group. That's the mentality.
thousands of years, right? The course of human history has essentially been pushed along by people devoted to something, whether it be the idea of manifest destiny, for instance, or things like different religions have really turned the wheels of history, whether they be good or.
And also, it's kind of easier to indoctrinate like young people, aka people that are like under 18. Not that like 18 is like the hard and fast cutoff. It's more like 25ish. Um, but it's like ask anybody, and they'll tell you kids are very impressionable. And if you can like impose your impression on a kid, that is their reality, regardless of what like it is outside of their little bubble. Their reality is whatever they choose to get impressed by, versus like in a like you trying to uh, indoctrinate an adult. Like it's just a little bit harder. On average, adults tend to be able to, sniff out bullshit a little bit easier. They've been on Earth a little bit longer than a child.
Or bad, but it's really been a driving force for a lot of people. So I think that there's a really innate human need to find something to attach yourself to. And I think as history has gone on, humans have become less and less attached and committed to religion as that one guiding light in their life. And so we look elsewhere. So you might not be a devout follower of any religion, but you probably feel like Star Wars is your religion, and you might, as a result,
Star Wars used to be cool. Not so much now.
feel like you're a literal Jedi, and that every Star Wars thing that comes out is a personal attachment to you, and therefore when somebody on the internet says they thought the Acolyte was dog shit, well, now you want to tell them that their mother was a whore in the first place and that they should shut the f up. And it seems like a stretch to go from this show is bad to your mom sucks. But the problem is that when people devote themselves and attach themselves to something wholeheartedly, it becomes part of their identity. Which leads to my next point, that when you make a fandom part of your identity, then any attack on that fandom or on a work out of that fandom feels like a personal attack. I can't personally...
That's a pretty good assumption. I mean, it all goes back to like trying to be a part of a group. When you're part of a group, I'm trying to think. Like when I was like in middle school and Halo came out and I had a bunch of buddies that played Halo around me, I identified as Master Chief. Why? Well, because it's a faceless soldier in all armor. You can't see him, so anybody can be Master Chief. Well, any dude really. And I just loved Halo at that point. If you're like coming around here like talking about Counter-Strike or some dumb shit like that, I'm like, no, Halo's better. You're full of shit. No. I mean, yeah, I could probably vouch for this.
Say that I feel this way. These days, I tend to sort of look at it from a let's just let bygones be bygones, we can agree to disagree sort of thing. But I feel that a lot of people don't exactly see that disconnect. And so when this is your thing, if you're the person that feels like Agatha All Along, for instance, was made for you, and somebody makes a YouTube video saying this is absolute shit and I refuse to watch it, well, now you start to feel like, are you saying I'm absolute shit and that I shouldn't even be here? And now there's a need for an attack. And the
which is kind of crazy because I see way more, and I don't know if this is like telling about myself, I see way more critical videos or personal, well, not personal, but like way more videos about shit that's bad than I do about shows or movies or games being good. I mean, yes, there are some outliers. There's a couple good games and movies and shows, but honestly, I see way more like reviews or things like this about stuff that's just bad.
Fortunate reality of that is that taking these things so personally really does nobody any favors. At the end of the day, unless somebody literally says you're a fucking moron for liking this stupid thing, then their opinions on that thing really have no bearing on you or your life or what they think of you as an individual, so why not just move on? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an accidental segue, because this is an unscripted video, into my next point: the inability to move on past voices that you don't want to hear.
Ooh, dwelling. To linger over. What? There's too much dwelling on a certain subject or a certain, I don't know, piece of media.
Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword. I tend to hear things like this all the time. If you don't like it, don't watch it. The fact of the matter is that
Okay, so I think that you could probably so like I think there's a connotation that goes along with dwelling. When somebody thinks of dwelling on something, they're probably thinking back on something in like a negative way versus reminiscing, which is thinking back on something positively. Um, they're both the same in in different. Both dwelling and reminiscing. I think there's so many like older, I don't know, just like people in their like 30s and maybe 40s that reminisce about, oh, back in my day movies were better, back in my day games were better, shows were better, um, versus like the someone that's like maybe younger, I'm guessing, that they whenever they hear like a judgment or a criticism on it, they dwell on it and they try to wrap their mind around every single solitary way that that person is wrong because they're a part of that group, and because they need to get like some sort of like closure and to prove them and validate themselves that they're right, that their decision to call that person an idiot is right. um and their inability to just move on from something, from someone that has like a different opinion than them. Again, it just goes back to like you're socially retarded.
That for me, this is actually my job. So for me, the don't like it, don't watch it argument doesn't work. But the fact of the matter is that the same thing could be applied to people who don't like my content. You might think I'm a real negative bitch, that I've never said anything nice in my whole fucking life. People on the internet can choose to click away, because the last time I checked, nobody gets a check in the mail every month for watching Snarky J videos. The internet would do very well by moving on. Don't look at people you don't agree with. Don't hate watch things you don't like. It's that much easier, if it's not your job for some reason, to move on. But it's hard for people, because when people become so staunch in their beliefs about these things, it's almost a necessity that is driven from within to go and correct the people that you don't agree with.
Yes, there is a an internal uh need or feel that there needs to be some sort of social justice that happens. Get that person canceled. They don't agree with me. Uh, you know, have them stop making money. Take away their sponsors. I don't agree with them. They don't agree with me. They should not exist. They don't deserve to have a voice. So on and so forth. That is justice.
To go and defend this thing on the internet, when realistically it would be that much easier.
And like in a vacuum, that could be like okay to think about in terms of like, I don't know, like bigger issues in the world. But like we're just talking about like movies, video games, and shows on, and whether or not they're good or bad. It's like, are you kidding me? Who's getting canceled over an opinion on a video game or a movie or a show? I mean, I could think of at least one person over a negative Elden Ring review, but there was some more stuff to that.
Easier to scroll past the obnoxious thumbnail that's already telling you they didn't like this thing that you loved. It would be that much easier to close the tab, go do something else, and realistically, I've also come to learn that it would be a lot easier on people's mental health to not watch and interact with things that upset them. That, I think, is yet another point why fandom is so toxic. The world that we live in is difficult. It's no secret that 99.9% of the world, everybody has their problems, and nobody's life is a walk through the roses. And so I think we find these bits of fantasy.
Well, you got someone that just comes home from their job. They work at least 40 hours a week. They want to come home, relax, watch a movie, and all of a sudden that movie or video game or show sucks. And then they're just frustrated. Or like hopefully that doesn't happen. You come home from your job and you like your video game, you like your movie, you like your show, and then everything is fine and dandy in the world. and everything's great, and yeah, everything is said and done. But when that doesn't happen, then it becomes an issue.
Right? And we cling to these characters in these movies and these IPs that we happen to love. And this is my glimmer of light. This is the one thing that really makes you smile to think about. And when you open Twitter and you see somebody shitting on it, that is just the first thing to set you off. And instead of doing what I said earlier and moving on, they look for conflict because we're all carrying this baggage of.
I mean, honestly, I think most people see a thing. Maybe it makes them think a certain way here or there, and they'll like scroll to a post, read it real quick, and you can see how many times this happens with like the little 3 lines, the engagement, or like the thing that counts as a view. And like you can see the comment versus the heart versus the engagement or the retweet or save button. You can see how many things happen in every post. The engagement stat is absolutely massive. So I think most people see things and they just move on from them. It's the toxic fandom base comes in when it's like there's like a couple people that, you know, the 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000 that go into the comment section, type the comment and type out, oh, I don't like this because this. All right. Most people are moving on. It's just the random one guy that has to pipe up and say some stuff.
Life, all the things that have been done to us, things that have happened to us. And so I think it's a very human thing. Unfortunately, it's one of our bad traits that when we feel frustrated, we want to take those things out on other people. So on the internet, if you happen to say you liked or didn't like this thing and somebody goes off on you about it in an almost inhumane and unhinged way, it says way less about you and your opinions and way more about the fact that this person is just going through something and you are the target of their frustrations right now. You're the thing that they're gonna just unload on. And I think we do
I can't imagine having my day ruined over something I saw on the internet. That's like crazy to me.
a lot better as a society to just not do that, or to at least do a better job of ignoring it. Now, in terms of people unloading frustrations online, I think that's another aspect of what makes fandom so toxic. Fandoms grow through the ability to communicate online, and there are so many people communicating online at a certain time that you are literally never going to fucking meet. And
An anonymity? The state or quality of being without any name or acknowledged. Yeah, like some people roll with their online name. Some people have an alias or a tag or something. I mean, yeah. Does this really contribute to toxic fan? I mean, kind of, because you could always say there's like an angry bot. Like people are just like sending bots to like go brigade you or whatever the word is. Just make random accounts that just spam like downvote or whatever. I mean, there's probably like a chunk of people that engage in stuff like that.
that is the key here. It's the fact that you can call somebody a stupid bitch and know that you're not gonna get punched because it's all online. You can pretty much set.
Oh yeah, a lot of the shit people say online, they probably would not say if they walk up to the person in real life. This is just a fact. I mean, that's why whenever I make a video, I'm like, okay, just do it as if the person is right there in front of me. And then, would you say this thing if the person was right there in front of you still? Okay, well then you better have some reasons on why you're saying some dumb shit.
A username to be anything. You can go and start an online fight and never have it matter. It's never gonna result in a punch to the face. Nobody's ever gonna call your mom and tell you to quit being a dick because.
Oh, yes, they will. Why do you think it's such bad manner on the internet to like dox people of all their personal information? Because people do it. People discover your cell phone, your address, and then they start like harassing you. People take their internet bullshit to real life. They will stalk them, do all this crazy ass shit, and it's not good.
There's this level of disconnect and anonymity that makes people bold. And so, because you have all these factors mixing in, and now you have this level of detachment and anonymity, people get fucking crazy. Because for the most part, there's not going to be any real consequences. And that leads to perhaps one of my more controversial opinions about the whole fandom thing. I think human beings were never meant to communicate with and hear opinions from so many people. At the end of the day, we are mammals. We are more developed animals. We share a lot of traits with them. And if you look at the course of human history, there were tribes, there were families,
Too
we were
connected.
hunter-gatherers, we were nomads. There's a long history before we figured out cave paintings and writing and all the different things that eventually led us to where we are today.
I mean, one of the main differences was, obviously technology. I mean, your main idea was like being too connected. People are choosing to be connected because you also have the option to disconnect if you want. But normally people can't fathom doing that. They're so like entrenched in like their daily activity with engaging like on the internet and just anything social media really. Um, yes, the option to disconnect is there, but people are just simply choosing to be connected.
We were people in groups. And before it became this global thing, we had the people that surrounded us. And oftentimes we shared ideas with them because we came from the same place, from the same people, presumably, and we had similar thoughts. And so I think one of the intrinsic things about human beings is that most of us do not like to have our opinions challenged. Our viewpoint is so singular and so focused on our own unique perspective that it's really hard for us as human beings to accept that anybody else's way of thinking makes sense because we're
Oh yeah, this is 100% true. It's hard to be introspective, or I think it's easier to be like retrospective, but not so much introspective, like in the moment. Seldom, like people are just simply not truth seeking machines. They don't seek the truth. People seek other groups that like that align with their ideas. That's what we do.
we're so set into our own. And it's only through your exposure to other people that you might start to change those beliefs. But back in the day, you wouldn't be exposed to those people. And you wouldn't have to defend your beliefs to as many people. There might be 2 or 3 people in your tribe that disagreed with you, unless your opinions were absolutely deranged. But for the most part, there was a very sort of almost hive-minded mentality. And so now we live in a world where you might have a thought. You now feel the need to share it on the internet. And that's great. That's exactly what I do. I have thoughts and I put them out on the internet. I have already come to the conclusion, and I've gotten very used to the fact, that I'm going to be challenged on all of these things. But the fact of the matter is that people are being challenged on their thoughts almost on a global scale. You open the internet and you see 17 million reels from strangers that
I'd probably say a little bit yes and a little bit no, depending on the social media that you're on. If you like, let's say if you're interested in gardening, you will just get flooded with like gardening shit. There's not really too many things to challenge that. But if you're like looking for like political things, and let's say you're on Twitter, and let's say you're like a left leaning person, but you only engage in right leaning things because they piss you off. Well, because how the algorithm works, the algorithm's gonna feed you more shit that pisses you off because you engage with it. I mean, so yeah, a little bit of yes, a little bit of no.
think and look at the world in totally different ways. And that might become overwhelming, and now now I gotta leave a fucking shitty comment on somebody's profile because I can't believe that anybody thinks this way. Or maybe you felt that you had to share your thought and now there's hundreds of people pissed off that you had anything different to say than what they thought, and now it's an all-out war. And I think that that is one of the main issues that we're all facing today. I'm not saying let's go back to cave paintings and messenger pigeons. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that
I mean, we
think
kind of
it's a real
have with like emojis and shit.
struggle for people to hear as much as they hear, to say as much as they say, and have as much conflict between opinions and thoughts because we really weren't meant to communicate the way that we do. It's a struggle on the mind and it's a struggle on people's emotions. And
Yes, it is a struggle, but I think it's a struggle that is at least worth having to try to flesh out certain ideas, especially more complicated things. Things that are a lot more complicated than video games, movies, and shows.
And that's why I think we have as much conflict as we have. And aside from that pretty logical route of thinking that I think I just laid out, I would say that the other thing that has made fandom even more toxic than it has been, I would say I've been really invested in this sort of stuff for the past 12, 13 years, but I've only seen it get as bad as it has over the past maybe 3 to 5. There's the saying that the things you don't bring up at the dinner table or with strangers are sex, religion, and politics. And politics have somehow been intrinsically woven into every aspect of our
Politicization? I don't even know. Politicization. Okay. To some degree, every single solitary thing can be politicized. It just can. This mouse was made by some company that engaged in some form of practice that is or is not legal, that I agree with. Your smartphone is made with cobalt. It was made with practices that engage with things that are or are not ethical, but you don't care because you like the services that a smartphone provides. Everything is literally you could. It's the matter of degrees of separation that you are willing to separate from. So like you don't really know how a phone is actually made with like all the circuits and knickknacks and shit that goes on. You just need to know how the cell phone works. All right, that's pretty much it. You don't really need to know the laws that are made and enforced to like make the cell phone. You don't know how the minerals and shit are mined, what the process goes through. You just need to know that iPhone 17's coming out or 18 or whatever, and then I'm just gonna buy that one and then I'm gonna use it. Woohoo! That's about it. You're not thinking all these other things that it took to like make it, that all the processes that it took to like make the phone. And do you agree with every single solitary one of them? No, people don't think like that because if you did, you would end up just literally just living in the woods with no interaction with society at all.
our lives. So never mind that politics make the government and essentially make the worlds in which we live, but they have also managed to make themselves a part of fandom, of Star Wars, of Marvel, of DC, of video games, everything that we use for entertainment.
It is kind of silly because all of this shit, like movies, shows, video games, it's all fiction. Like, come on now. Most shit besides like, kind of like documentary style, like pieces of entertainment or like this story was based on a real story or, shit like that. Most of this fucking entertainment media, it's all fiction. And people are bitch moan complaining about shit that's not even real, which is hilarious.
Has now been connected to politics, despite the fact that we want to use these things as escapes from politics in the real world. Why? It's anybody's guess. I'm sure there are so many reasons for why that's happening, and I have my own theories, but I'm not going to get into them right now. The fact of the matter is that politics have become interwoven with the things that we love. And so now you can almost find clear divides politically in things as nonsensical as Star Wars and Marvel and superheroes and video games. And so because these things have become tied to issues that are so politicized, there's really no way for anybody to talk about any of it without it automatically being a political statement. The issue is,
I mean, because it kind of is. I mean, when they take what was his name, John Boyega, when they take his character on the cover of like a Star Wars poster and like shrink him down, either shrink him down or remove him, just so they can like put that poster out in like China or like some other country that thinks differently about minorities than we do here in the U.S. Yeah, that kind of seems ridiculous. If you like Disney, it's like, why would you do that, Disney? Do you literally not care about morals and ethics and just care about money, and you only do what is financially beneficial for you? Oh, okay.
is that since politics are on that list of the 3 things you don't bring up at the dinner table, now it makes these arguments more personal. Now it makes these arguments less about the nonsense and fantasies that we cling to and more about morals and ideology. And that's the biggest issue I think that's really come up sort of recently, is that it's not about identity or attachment or frustrations within ourselves anymore. Now it almost feels like these things are as life and death as an election could be, right? You look at things like,
Yeah, but they're not. They're just not.
like Star Wars and DC, and it almost feels like people handle it with that level of gravity. There's no way to have a civilized discussion because somebody's going to jump down your throat. Somebody's going to make an assumption about you politically. It is incredibly counterproductive to take it both that seriously, but also to be that completely opposed to having civilized discussions about these things. We can always discuss, but there's no need to jump to arguments and threats and just absolutely unhinged behavior towards a stranger who just happened to like or dislike something that you felt the opposite way about. I personally interact with more toxic fandom than I ever thought I would interact with. And since I've gotten into doing this and sharing my thoughts on the internet, I have found that so many people are so willing to make assumptions about you and to just lay out incredibly cruel insults based solely on your opinion of a film or TV show or cartoon or video game. And I think that it says a lot.
Wait. Let me hear.
Cruel insults based solely on your
Did people still think like this whenever people when they read like a newspaper review on like a movie? Remember like Ebert, what was it? Roger Ebert and the other guy, was it like Roper or something? Ebert and Roper? I don't remember. But, tons of people read those reviews. And back in the newspaper days, I think people took that stuff as like gospel, more or less. I don't like personally know like how many like threats or insults those guys got whenever they put out like a review of a movie or anything like that. So it's not like the threats and the insults are like a new thing that is unique to the internet. I think the more ability we have to communicate, the more threats and insults you're gonna get. Especially when it's just a DM or a comment away. I don't know. I guess it kind of just comes with the territory, but you could always ask like, oh, whether or not it's right or wrong. It's kind of here nor there because it's just going to happen.
Your opinion of a film or TV show or cartoon or video game. And I think that it says a lot about the world that we live in when people are that willing to be so cruel over what I feel is absolute nonsense.
Yeah, but fuck them.
But personally, I feel choosing to try to understand why these things happen is a lot more productive than just getting pissed off about it or going and insulting these people in return. I think a lot of the issues that I laid out are pretty much chalked up to human nature. It's just we're dealing with human nature on a more grand scale because now we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of people every day by way of the internet. So I don't think this is getting any better. But even if fandom stays toxic forever, I hope that we can at the very least find the little silver linings that we enjoy, and ignore every fucking asshole that has ever had something stupid to say on the internet. And that's all from me. I've been Snarky J. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more Snarky J, be sure to check me out on Instagram, and if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. I'll add links to all of those in the description below, and let me know your thoughts on the truth about toxic fandom in the comments below.
I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff she was saying was true. Do you think it will get worse? Like, why it's worse than ever? Will it get worse, or is this the worst it will get? I think it's like reached like a diminishing return point at this point. I mean, because like if you make a video or review, all you're gonna be exposed to is like your comment section, and that's just like whatever. The reasons why people are toxic, I mean, yeah, I mean it's just human nature. Just let it be. I don't really see that changing in the foreseeable future. But other than that, that's pretty much it for me. Good stuff, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.